All right, it is Friday, and this is Blair and Barker. The Jays getting ready to take on the Minnesota Twins tonight. We'll be joined by Twins Senior VP and GM Thad Levine later on in the show. Jeff Passan joins us as well. It is Friday, so we'll go to the back leg line, 416-413-3959. But because it is also Friday, it means that we're joined by the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, John Schneider. Hello, Mr. Schneider.
What's up, guys?
You're in one of my favorite cities.
What's that?
You're in one of my favorite cities. I love the Twin Cities, man.
It's a good spot.
Yeah.
Nice field. You know, fond memories here.
Yeah. We'll tell you off air what my first question was going to be then, because you opened the door. No. Hey, you know, I don't want to turn this into Bowden Francis love fest by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, watching him these last four starts or so, John, we've talked a lot about the splitter, but it seems to me that with Bowden, it really does begin with fastball command, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean him and basically, you know, most pitchers, right? It's pretty incredible to watch him kind of own that and understand. You know, a lot of it is just him being on a routine as a starter. It's easier for him to say, okay, every pitch has a purpose as opposed to coming out of the pen and kind of letting it rip a little bit. But he is locating his fastball in, out, up, down, sinker when he needs to, which is a new pitch for him. It's just been really, really fun to watch. You know, his misses are good misses. And I think he's getting in on a lot of hitters too, which is not easy to do. And the split has just been in the zone, you know, commanding it in the zone. It's such a tough pitch to hit, and not many of them are non-competitive, but pairing that with the fastball and his other two pitches, he's been really, really in total control.
John, he's throwing with a lot of conviction, and I just try to remember when I was a player how not convicted I was when I walked to the plate, right? It's almost like I just didn't have enough confidence in myself that this was going to work out. How has he learned how to be convicted with his stuff?
He's always believed in it, you know, and I think if you know Bowden, he's very present with what he's doing, and he's really, really he's always been confident in his stuff. And I think right now what we're seeing is just a chance to pitch regularly and get into a good rhythm. You know, it's cool when guys are executing at a high level, and it's cool when guys are having success, and it's even cooler when, you know, you see his demeanor is so calm, so professional, and he takes a lot of pride in that. So I think that's where the conviction comes. You know, we've allowed him to work out. Going back to like Chicago, we've allowed him to work out of some jams. That's given him a little bit more confidence to go deeper in games. And, you know, when you're rolling like this, it's easy to just, you know, hear what pitch is being called and here we go, try to hit it. That's kind of where he's at.
Now, you mentioned Minnesota and fond memories of Minnesota. Minnesota also, I'm sure Kevin Gossman is well aware of the numbers Minnesota's put up against him throughout his career. And I'm just wondering, John, with the way he's been sprinkling in that two-seamer a little more now, some of the mechanical changes he's made, is this a bit of an acid test for all of that for Kevin? In other words, he's facing a team that, I mean, you know, you've talked to Kevin. Kevin thought maybe he was tipping pitches. I mean, he's had to do a deep dive into everything about the Twins. Is this a bit of an acid test for the, I guess, quote-unquote, new Kevin Gossman, if you want to look at it that way?
It'll be fun. It'll be interesting. You know, this team has given him some trouble, obviously. And, you know, similar team. They got some injuries, but it'll be, I think, I'm looking forward to watching him attack, you know, and you got to put those bad starts behind you. I think he's in a really good spot, like you said, mechanically right now, and his velo is where it should be. And you got to see what happens. I do think, you know, he's a little bit different than he was last year, you know, or the last time he saw these guys. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for sure. And I know Kev's excited to go out there and compete tonight.
Are you worried about Yariel's velocity? And going forward, what do you need to see that will give you confidence that he's one of the five starters going into early next season?
Not worried about it. It's still there, kind of maybe not as consistent, throughout the course of an outing as it has been. And I think he's up around 85 innings. He's getting to that point to where we kind of thought he would hit, this first year. And he's definitely shown that he can do this. There's so many factors that go into it right now for him. Just learning the in-between stuff and kind of the pitchability. So, I mean, I think physically he's probably a little bit tired. But I do think going forward, you look into the offseason and next year, he's shown that he can, have the stuff and hold the stuff that a starter does. So, we know kind of the last couple starts here down the stretch, the last handful or so, we're going to try to protect him a little bit in terms of innings. And, we want to see him pitch, based on how he's feeling, based on situation. That's kind of the next step for him.
We talk about predictability with a lot of players. Is Genesis Cabrera there yet?
He's pretty close. I mean, he's been pretty damn consistent. He's talk about being confident. That plays a lot into it. And for the little bit of a rough stretch that he started off with this year, battling through some things physically, he's been good, man. He's been reliable. Takes the ball whenever you need him to, and he's been really damn consistent for about 3 months now. So he's a weapon for us. It kind of doesn't even matter, right, left. He's good against righties. I think he's confident in all of his pitches, and he is definitely not afraid of any situation. If you know anything about Cavi, he wants to be out there. So he's been better than advertised down the stretch.
Do we have any injury updates on Loperfido or Bo?
Yeah, Joey's doing fine. He went through a bunch of tests yesterday with our training staff and with the doctors there in Boston and came through it okay. He's going to run through some more tests today. So I think it's just more of kind of like whiplash hitting the monster a little bit. But we got to check him out here in the next hour or so, but hoping that he's going to, avoid an IL or anything like that and be all right. And Bo, continuing to progress well. He's going to have a little bit of a lighter day from a running standpoint today, but he's going to be taking ground balls and kind of doing everything else baseball-wise. He's making progress for sure.
Davis has really been struggling. What are you seeing with him? And any chance you as an organization would send him down just to let him catch his breath a little bit?
But yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing, we're trying to get that done here a little bit, trying to get him, catch his breath here a little bit with playing time. And he knows that. We've discussed that with him. I think what we're seeing is, when he came up last year, about as hot as anyone could start, right? And went through it a little bit at the end of last year and then, started well this year and has been going through it. I think a lot of it is mechanical stuff, that he's been working on, especially the last 3 weeks or so. And the biggest difference is just, you guys can see it. He's not ending at bats when they should end. He's either fouling off a pitch that he should hit or not swinging at it, So when you're in this kind of stretch, again, Kev, you know how it is. I know how it is. If there's a mechanical flaw, all of a sudden it starts creeping into your head a little bit, and it kind of snowballs. So you're just going to try to continue to have him focus on his work, put him in the right spots, hopefully, where he can have success. And, we're at the point, we talk about that with everyone. What's best for the player? Is it here? Is it in the minor leagues? I think right now we're confident in the work he's doing. It's not really translating in games. So he should. The biggest difference is he's shown he can be good here, and we want to continue to give him that opportunity. And then when push comes to shove, you try to make the best decision for the player.
Yeah, well, I just wonder what your sort of role is when you're chasing hits. I think that's what you're talking about a little bit, right? When you look up at the scoreboard and he's 2 for his last 42 or 3, right? It's not the easiest thing to go through. Have you had conversations with him? I'm sure you have. Like, how do you get past that part of it? Like, just where stats don't matter. We know where you're at. Trust the process.
Right. Yeah. Those conversations, we've had I've had a few of those with him, and I mean, no one works harder than Schneid, and nothing's ever been handed to him. So he kind of has that mentality. And I think when you hear from the hitting coaches every single day when you're working in the cage, I think when you hear from the manager, it gives you a little bit of an exhale a little bit. And he's said that to me. And it's so much easier said than done to say, hey, man, focus on the process that you're working on and the results are going to come. They're human. They're competitors. They're big leaguers. They want the results to happen. So he's got to stay patient. He's got to just stick with what he's doing. And, hopefully he can turn it around here down the stretch and end on a better note than what has been, a pretty good stretch here for him.
John, we're now a month past the trade deadline. I guess a month and a day, technically past the trade deadline. What's the biggest difference you're seeing from the manager's point of view in this team compared to the team before the deadline?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's obviously we're younger, right? The one constant has been our starting pitching, and I think that just always gives you a little bit of wiggle room. And having these young guys come up, whether it's Leo, Addy, Wags, Spence, I think they've gotten to the point to where they're comfortable in this environment, and they're meshing well with the veteran players. You can just look on paper. You can talk to opposing managers. We're more dynamic. We're more athletic. We're hitting more homers. So those things kind of just jump out at you. And it's been really cool to watch the effort. There's always learning moments every game, and these guys are embracing that. And the veteran guys, I've said it a million times, George, Vlad, Varsh, Kevin, Chris, Hosey, they've been unbelievably helpful with this young group that is up. So it's been fun to watch. We'll just watch them play with the effort, and hopefully you turn some of these things that they're learning into the difference between a win and a loss. But it's been cool. It's been cool to see the power. It's been cool to see the athleticism kind of coming out.
John, can you explain to people that don't understand that a veteran guy like a Chris Bassett, who just makes a drastic move and moves as far on the rubber as he did in his last start, I mean, that's not the easiest thing. And I know he said that when Hazel asked him the question after the game about, just basically you got to be brave. I've got about a little over 180 career starts, and I don't do that. It's rarely if I move around on the rubber. Just explain to people how hard that is for a veteran guy to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can relate it to what George did, right, in June or whatever it was with changing his hands. You've done something for so long and you've had a ton of success with it. If you change something drastically and it doesn't go well, you go, well, what the hell was I doing? Why did I do that? So Chris in particular, he is such a student of the game, and at sometimes can be his own worst enemy. We joke with him about that. But to understand what that move would do immediately and what that would do to a hitter's vantage point and what his stuff does and how it plays, it just speaks volumes to him as a student of the game a little bit. And for him to say, I think he told Hazel after the game, something had to change. I was getting killed by lefties and I was giving up too many home runs, so something had to change. And it was something that, he talked about pretty adamantly the couple days before his start in Boston with Pete. And it takes a little bit of courage for a pitching coach to say, okay, go ahead, big fella, give it a whirl, So I think both of them, just not being afraid of trying new things just speaks volumes, both of them being Chris and Pete. But Chris especially going out and competing at a big league game and saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and having really good success.
Yeah, it takes marbles to do that in Fenway Park, too, with that little short porch and left, right? It sure does. Where have you seen the most improvement in Barger's game?
Confidence, getting a little bit more consistent playing time. I've said this before. He's toned down some things with his swing. I mean, he's not getting cheated. We all see that. And, a lot of these guys, what I've been really pleased with is, they have ability. You can say, okay, Addy hits the ball hard. He runs fast. He throws hard. Now it's how do you put that up with a plan? And these guys are starting to figure that out. It's evident, the walk-off homer, he's sitting on a 3-2 changeup, and verbalizing that and going out and executing it. And just being a little bit more comfortable in his surroundings and saying, okay, I know I have the tools, and I'm going to put a plan with it and stick to it. Even as it bats against Bayo when he was really good, hits the double and then works a walk. It was a pretty obvious plan that he stayed convicted to against that pitcher. So that's been the encouraging part with Addy. He's putting some pretty good thoughts together with really good skills.
John, last one. Do you have a favorite position for him? I know you flip-flopped him around certain places, just trying to get his bat in the lineup. Do you have a favorite spot, like his sort of sweet spot that he likes? You'd see the best out of Addison Barger.
I think third base is where
looks like it.
He was. Yeah, I think third base is where he could really maybe settle in. It's easy to rely on the arm in the outfield, and he's athletic enough, but this dude's got some good reactions. He's got good hands. Obviously, the arm is a weapon at third base. I know Carlos spends a ton of time with him, and Carlos likes what he sees over there too. So, versatility is nice. It is nice, but there's always the fine line between saying, okay, let's get good at a couple positions as opposed to great at one.
Yeah.
And, I like that presence both offensively and defensively at third. So we'll try to keep that rolling as much as we can.
Cool.
John, as always, we appreciate your time. Yeah. Thanks so much for this, and go get him.
Yeah, have fun in Minnesota.
And join Benny. Take care.
See ya.
This is John Schneider, manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, in his favorite spot. I do like the Twins. LA, I'm a big fan of the Twin Cities. But
you got to play good against them. Like, you got to all parts of the game got to show up. If they don't, they're going to beat you.
That's a big series for the Twins, too.
It is. Like, they're where they're at in the standings. I think they're 3 up in the wild card.
They're 2-8 in their last 10. They
lost 4 in a row.
I
mean, they haven't been very good against teams above 500 or better. So, they got, I think, 7 more games against Kansas City and the Guardians. Like, there's some meaningful baseball, and they're going to be coming in here against the Blue Jays, supposed to be, trying to beat the teams they're supposed to be beating. So, yeah, it's a good little test for the Jays. I mean, John mentioned it there about the offense and the players, just who they're going to be facing and the way they're going to try and be matching up, right? You're going to get a lefty against a lefty late in the game. So,
I'm
intriguing to see that.
I'm also going to ask you this, the fact that we haven't seen the lineup yet, but, Bo isn't going to be there. Like, there are going to be a lot of guys in this lineup who weren't there last year, have no idea, what it was like, what that playoff game was like. I mean, obviously they've read about it, but they weren't in the team.
Yeah.
That make any difference? Do you think that?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the only thing that matters is that Gausman knows he's 1-4 with a 6.94 ERA and 12 starts against the Twins. I think that's the only person that knows. Everybody else has sort of got their own new problems, whatever those new problems are. And, they're going to go out there and try to do their best to compete and beat a good team. That's what I think. I think John's happy that he's got athletes. I think that's what it is, right? It's hard to – what Rex was saying. Paul Scheider, I hate to say it that way, but that's Rex's words. I think sometimes when you sort of pass on some guys that aren't athletic and say turn them into a good player, that's not always the easiest thing. But then you start hearing in John's voice there, right? Now he's got a bunch of athletes. You can refine and, sort of explain to guys you need to not kick it so high. Shorten that thing up, give you a chance to get athletic, stay balanced, and now you can use what God gave you. And I think you can hear it in his voice. He's kind of having some fun, right? I mean, I've talked to a couple of them coaches. They're having a little bit of fun dealing with this. Now, obviously, the season didn't turn out the way they wanted it to, but now that it's, you've come to that realization, now it's about the teaching part. Yeah, and I think they like it that they got some athletes that they can teach how to play baseball.
And I think also they like the fact that in a couple of instances, you're seeing guys make progress. Right? I mean, guys are getting better. Addison Barger now is a better player than he was when he came
I think it's intriguing, too, that he said third base. I wanted to ask him that just because of what the Blue Jays' needs are, and it's a third baseman, right? A thumper at third. Well, if you don't get that and he plays a different position, third base is a little open, right? I mean, you could have a platoon sort of spot going on there with him and Ernie. I don't know. That's why I wanted to ask him the question is,
where does Vladdy fit in that?
There you go. It's like, you got, again, I'm sure if they found a first baseman like Pete Alonso,
they'll make it work.
They'll figure it out, right? He can DH, he can play first, Vladdy will play a little third. Like they'll figure out ways to try and get the best,
But I think
13 guys that they can possibly get that can play every day. So,
but I also think it's important for a guy like Barger that the organization has a spot where they are comfortable with him, right? As opposed to, he's kind of okay here. Yeah, he's kind of okay there. Yeah, he's kind of okay there. It's important to have that spot at least where the organization views you as having.
Can I ask you a question? When's the last time you heard John Schneider say that it's okay to have a bunch of versatile players, but it's also kind of nice to have a guy that's really good at one spot? He said that. I've never heard him say that. I've always said, you've always heard the GM and whoever wants to talk, the higher up, say that we want versatility, right? It's good to have those. Well, maybe that's changed. Buck talks about that all the time, right? Why are we trying to force these dudes to play all these different positions instead of going out? It's okay to do that at 1 or 2 spots. You can't do that at 5 or 6 spots and think you're going to win a World Series that way. It's very, very hard. So
And
maybe the mindset's changed in the organization.
And what I've always found kind of interesting about that is that's an approach you don't expect from an organization running a $230 million payroll, right? It's the approach you expect from Oakland or
the Rays
or the Rays.
The Brewers.
You don't necessarily expect that from
top 10 payroll
from a team with this payroll, but it's also, I mean, it's it's a pretty clear philosophical thing on the part of this organization, and maybe that's changing. We've already heard them say they've realized that they've kind of overcorrected in terms of run prevention, and maybe there's another slight philosophical shift going on. But I mean, Buck hit the nail on the head, and it's the same way. I don't mind having a couple of guys that can play multiple positions because injuries happen.
Yeah,
it's funny, you don't get those 17-inning games anymore, the long extra inning games for the most part because of the ghost runners. So the idea that you could get really creative in the 15th, I mean, you don't need that anymore. To me, you really need just one or two guys who can play all over the place.
It's a lot to ask too, right?
And also, the rest of the guys, I want them to have a position.
It's also it's a lot to ask an individual to learn how to play a new position, be comfortable at it, not beat your team on that side. And also, by the way, we want you to go hit a lot. It's just a lot to ask. So it's easier for me anyway. I've said this to you. You're a hitter first. Yeah. And then that defense will come along and you'll play defense the way you want it to. But I think they're seeing that it's hard to do, say, 3 or 4 different things and be really, really good at them. It's really hard to do that. So,
and the thing is, too, with defensive metrics now, there's a lot of ways to measure how bad a dude is at a particular position.
Yeah, he mentioned the fast twitch muscles that Barger gives you at third base, and the soft hands, the strong arm. He can do flat. Yeah, he gets good jumps. You can tell he runs even good routes at third, right? Running with your back turned to the infield, trying to find a baseball. It's not the easiest thing to do in the infield. He looks like he's pretty comfortable doing that. He's got a strong arm. He can throw flat-footed, which is what you have to do on the left side of the infield, right? Every once in a while, you're going to dive, throw from your knees. Yep. You got to have arm strength to be able to do that. You got to have accuracy, and he seems to be able to do that, and he seems to be comfortable doing it. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just intriguing. You can sort of read between the lines.
It was an interesting answer.
Yeah, it was.
It was an interesting answer.
It was. That's why I wanted to ask him, because they have tried to, I don't want to say force him, but they have wanted to figure out whether or not he is that guy or not.
If he's the left-handed guy that can hit 20, 25, that solves a lot of issues for you.
What if he was a 20-double guy, or 15 or 20 homer guy? Exactly. Like, that's good, right? That's
sure. And play good defense
for me. Maybe not an everyday guy against them tough lefties. That's maybe why you'd have an Ernie there to, take a little off his plate. But I don't know. Maybe you're getting him to where he's starting to pass some of the other guys, right? It's, is Will Wagner part of it? Probably not. Is Davis Schneider part of it? Not for me. I think they're doing him a disjustice. I really do. I understand why they have the best in the world here. But every once in a while, it just gets so bad. I'm speaking from experience. I never wanted to go down ever. And he will tell you that there's nothing good about the minor leagues. But every once in a while,
you need a reset.
You need to get away from 2 for 45.
Yeah.
Just every once in a while, you need to walk away from which door you're picking of the hitting coaches. It's like, I've tried all 3 of you, and there's 18 more. I just don't know which door to pick. So every once in a while, it's just easy to and good to get away from that. But maybe they know their player better than we do. And I'll give them credit. Man, they give them dudes a long leash.
Oh, yeah.
But because I hate to keep saying that old guy on your lawn kind of thing. But when I played, I'd been gone 2 months ago.
Yeah, nobody...
2 months ago.
I'll say this. Nobody can leave this organization saying they weren't given a chance. You can't. Man. You can't say that.
Well, maybe they feel like they have the little blame in that. Yeah. Maybe that's why.
It is Friday. We've heard from the manager, John Schneider, and now we'll go to the back leg line, 416-413-3959. It's Blair and Barker for Friday on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker for Friday. This is a baseball show, obviously, but we would be remiss if we did not extend our condolences to the family, friends, teammates, and fans of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. Of course, by now if you heard the news today, both of them killed in a automobile/cycling accident. They were hit by a drunk driver. And again, our condolences, and I'm sure people along the station and this network have passed along their condolences as well, but certainly ours, to all their families and their friends, teammates, and fans as well. It is Friday. That means we go to the back leg line. The numbers, as always, or the number, as always, 416-413-3959. Your chance to leave questions or comments for Kevin or myself, preferably for Kevin, because let's face it, he's the one everybody wants to hear from.
Wow.
James from Toronto left a message.
I'm just wondering, maybe Barker, you can answer this as a player. Why is it so important for Bichette to get back into the lineup before the end of the season, before the end of September? Is it to show other teams that maybe, because he knows he's going to get traded, maybe to show that he's healthy enough and for next year? Or, I mean, I just don't really understand the point. I don't know. It's kind of maybe it's an easy answer. I don't know. Perhaps you guys can shed some insight onto that for me. Thank you.
Yeah, look, do we know he's getting traded?
No, but I think the caller's question is that was pretty clear. Why do we think it's important? I mean, I said I
know if I were him, he said an awful year. Awful. Like the last time we remember seeing him on a baseball field optically wasn't very good. Bo has a lot of pride. Bo sees what's going on. I mean, they're having a good time. Like they're doing some things. He wants to come be invited to the party too. Like he's got a lot to prove. I'm in that camp. Like I know you don't think he does because he's figured out his defense. He's got enough. I do. I think since last August, he hasn't been a real good player. And I think now, with the injuries and just the lack of performance when it comes to beginning of the season when they really needed him, and now it's I think it's well, you need some confidence going into the offseason. I have no idea. I can't speak to the trading and
but realistically, we're talking 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks is enough, and you get the feel of it. You get to what you might need to work on, how it feels when you have your two-strike approach with your leg that you went through.
I think
issues.
the only reason it's important is for him to show people that he is healthy, and so at least when you do go into the off season, if trading him is on the table, and of course before any team makes that deal, they're going to want to look at the medicals anyhow. But if Bo finishes playing 14 consecutive games or something like that, at least the team can approach the Blue Jays, or the Blue Jays can approach a team knowing they've got a guy who played 14 games.
I hope that's not the reason why he wants to come back and play. I hope that's not why.
Well,
I hope that's not.
Well, it's not I'm sure he's not sitting there saying, "I got to get back and play so I can show everybody I'm healthy, so that I can get traded." But it's a factor. I'm sure he wants to get back and play because he wants to play. Bo wants to play. He's a baseball player, and we know all you have to do is watch how much work the guy puts in. If the guy didn't,
they all work.
No, but the thing is, if the guy didn't want to play baseball, he wouldn't be out there doing what he does on a daily basis. So he obviously wants to play baseball, but you can't sit there and tell me that if Bo finishes the year playing in 14 consecutive games, that at least the team that's interested in him won't have to be, is this guy, how healthy is he?
The James didn't ask me why the organization would want him to play. He asked me why Bo Bichette would want to play. And I think because Bo's had a bad year, he sees what's going on. He wants to get back. And
why is it important for Bichette to return?
Yeah, Bo, not the organization. The organization's got some things into this if they want to trade it.
I think the question was general. Why is it important for everybody? It's important that the correct way would be, why is it important that Bo Bichette returns before the season?
Okay.
In terms for Bo to himself, I would think he
positive vibes. If he doesn't get traded, people, fans, Bo, teammates want to be excited to have Bo on their team. Big part of it, hitting in the meat of the order. It's not a guarantee he's getting traded. It's going to be. It got a lot more heavy lifting. Now they may. I mean, they may already come to this conclusion. Maybe that's their plan. Is as soon as he gets healthy, they're trading him. But
they've got to be, at the end of the day, whatever they do, however they do it, they've got to be better offensively.
Yeah.
And you're right. Just getting rid of Bo doesn't make you better offensively. So that's the bottom line is, will you be better offensively? If you can do it without Bo, then you've pulled off a hell of a trade.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the way I would put it. Glenn and Oshawa.
Good call, Jeff.
Barker's mentioned that he thinks there's about 2 aircraft carriers that might be able to carry this team forward with Vlad. So potentially a Santander, maybe a Teoscar Hernandez. I just don't think that's available for the Blue Jays. What I think makes more sense is a Jeff favorite, Ryan McMahon, and potentially a Santander. But even if you have those 2 types of players in this lineup, I don't see the Jays being able to push forward or push past that threshold that we think that is existing. What I do think, though, is they need to add more to the bullpen, prioritize that a little bit more, just because if you've got Chad Green, you've got yourself a Jordan Romano, or even if you have another really strong bullpen arm like Tanner Scott, you might be able to push forward as well. The other comment that I wanted to make actually is, I know this front office gets a lot of flack, but you have to also consider the road not taken. You've gotten yourself the Steven Matz of the world. You've gotten yourself the Ross Striplings of the world. Even to some extent, Marcus Simeon, who's being paid like a 30-plus home run hitter, and he hasn't done that quite yet. All these players, and I'm probably missing some more, haven't been paid by the Blue Jays. They haven't been paid, and it's the road that the Jays front office hasn't taken. So I do want to give them a little bit of credit where it's due, but would love to hear your comments and thoughts about the thought on the bullpen and the lineup.
I mean, I guess I give them some credit that they, didn't throw out awful contracts, but I'll tell you what, I would take Marcus Simeon on this second. I'm not entirely certain. I think Marcus Simeon's World Series ring will probably tell you that.
Who would you rather have leading off, Marcus or George?
Yeah. So I'm not entirely certain that. Look, we talked about this. Almost every long-term contract sucks in the last 2 years. It just does. That's a cost of doing business.
The way it is.
Right. That's a cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And if that scares you off, then, go year to year with guys. As far as the free agents go, see, I kind of disagree. I think if anything, what this year has shown is, there will be years where you don't have to win 100 games to go to the playoffs. And we talked about this the other day. All these the teams in the American League right now, it's hard to look at a team and go, you know what, that team's going to be really, really better next year. A lot of these teams are already pretty good. I don't know. I'm not with the caller. I think if you make a couple of moves, I think you can take a shot at this.
Yeah, me too. And also, Glenn made a good point about the bullpen. You've been talking about this for a while. It needs to be better. They need more swing and miss. They need more predictability when John hands the ball. Like they, need to sort of solidify the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, however that rolls. I think you got to get a closer, but it may be too much heavy lifting. And the Ryan McMahon thing, the third baseman for the Rockies, absolutely, if you could get that. But the Rockies never seem to want to trade anybody, like not anybody that matters. Yeah, he'd make perfect sense. Left-hander who plays third, who's a veteran guy who could probably drive you in 85 to 90 runs. Yeah, like that'd make perfect sense. But I think it'd be easier to spend a little money on the older guys, get the older guys in here, and at least you'd have 1 through 5 taken care of in your lineup. And then whatever you want to do with the rest of the lineup, you could maneuver that around the way you wanted to maneuver it around. I just think they tried it this way so long, Jeff. The only way they got now is to try it one other different way. Yep. It's to surround the 2 dudes. If Bo's back, surround those 2 dudes with a couple of guys to see what happens. At least you can point the finger and say, hey, we did everything we could do. It was up to the players. The players didn't get it done.
Let's go to Braden in Whitehorse.
2 quick questions. First one is, I've got this reoccurring nightmare that the Blue Jays run it back next year without contracts for the big boys. Maybe sign a thumper or 2. And all of a sudden we're at the trade deadline. They're sitting 500, maybe a few games above 500, and they decide they can make a run at it.
Mm.
Then all of a sudden we're swept in the wild card, and everyone walks, and they're left with nothing. I mean, I'm a diehard Jays fan no matter what, but even that would leave a pretty sour taste in my mouth. Do you guys think that's irrational, or do you think that's kind of where we're trending right now?
I'll go first.
And secondly, for
Glenn.
Mr. Barker,
Sorry, Brady.
you said you want to pay dudes to hit 300. I agree that the new starting pitching rule isn't the solution, and I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
Is it as simple as teaching kids to have nice, flat, easy, quick swings, kind of like Wagner and Ernie have, and two-strike approach like Bo, poke it the other way, and then just stopping this go up, take 3 daddy hacks, and sit down situation we got going on? Yeah, I'd like you to elaborate on that, and thanks. Love the show, and hope you guys have a restful, long weekend.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brady. I couldn't agree more about the second part about the pitching thing. I think you're giving hitters too much of a hall pass. You pay them too much money. Figure it out. It's not always the pitcher's fault. They mastered their craft. Have a hitter master theirs. Pay them in different ways. If you have to pay them for hitting 300, pay them for hitting 300. But nobody pays any attention to what I got to say. The 500 at the break, if they're 500 at the break, one of the two big boys is getting traded. That's their run, at least for me, is the first half of the season. If the first half of the season doesn't go, if running it back, I would assume is everybody. Is that, you think, what Brady's talking about? Like all the coaches, everybody in the front office.
Well,
I don't
know about all the coaches. To me, running it back means that basically running it back is Springer, Bo, and Vladdy, and all the pitchers. To me,
yeah.
Turkey. I mean, the rest of it is like if Will Wagner isn't here, does that mean they're not running it back? I think you're just talking about. You're talking about those core players.
Yeah.
Would it surprise me? Nope.
If they run it back? No. I don't think anybody wants George. And why would you trade Vladdy if you have any hope whatsoever of going where you want to go? At least the first half of the season. There's 3 wild card spots.
I just don't. I wish I could be a little more definitive than this, but I just have no idea.
Yeah.
They could run it back. They could trade Bo. I don't see there's a scenario where they trade both Bo or Vladdy in the offseason. But you know what? If we know, this isn't meant to be a cop-out. If I could find out by November whether or not Mark Shapiro gets an extension, then I think we can have this conversation a little more intelligently with a little deeper understanding of where it's going to go. But, yeah,
I mean, I think that's fair, but it doesn't hide the fact that what their need is obviously right in front of them. Doesn't take an extra extension for Mark Shapiro to know that they need 2 dudes that know how to hit, that can hit to the top of the order. They haven't tried that since they've been running the Blue Jays.
And I guess the good thing is, from Vladdy's people's point of view, if Vladdy signs that type of a contract, that's going to involve the Rogers board, that's going to involve ownership. So, maybe this whole idea that Mark's contract needs to be settled before you can talk to Vladdy, maybe that's not right. Because if you're Vladdy's agents, if you're looking at a 6 or 7 year deal, first of all, there's a real good chance that the guy you sign it with isn't going to be there as GM. Not many people last 6 or 7 years. And secondly, as long as ownership's committed, who do you care who's,
Yeah, I think you're spot on about the people that are writing the checks that are going to sign Vladdy. This is what I think. I think if the president would have liked Vladdy that much, Vladdy would have been signed already. That's what I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason he hasn't been signed. There's
Absolutely.
a reason there hasn't been much in the way of negotiations. And as far as we know, it's not from his side.
Absolutely.
From Vladdy's side.
Absolutely.
Jim in Hamilton.
A lot has been discussed about next year and the lineup. A lot of talk has been about the young kids who can play where next year. Kevin said yesterday, the day before, loves Clement. So do I. Is he your everyday third baseman? Kevin doesn't think so. Put Vladdy there for picking somebody up for first base or all the rest of it. The only thing I haven't heard spoken about, though, is the second catcher. Is Kirky able to do an entire season next year? Because I would have liked Danny back. like Kevin, I just would have signed the check. Do you think Severin is our number 2 next year? Or do you think there's an upgrade out there a little bit better than Severin, and what do you have to give up to get that guy? Or are you happy with Severin going forward to next year, backing up Kirky? Look forward to your thoughts, gentlemen. Have a good day.
That's Servant, first of all. Although maybe Severin would be better.
How dare you correct Jim?
Well, Jim, with all due respect, we might be on the same page here. They got so much else to do. I don't care. Kirky plus another catcher, sure. As long as I'm not counting him to be my cleanup hitter, as long as I'm not counting on him to be a major part of my offense, right? I'll take what he can give me, and I'll be happy if he's a little more like he was when he won the Silver Slugger award. But other than that, I can find a backup catcher. I really can.
Yeah. We seem to talk a lot about a dude who's got a low 700 OPS and hits like 5 homers. Like maybe we talk way too much. And I'm in the camp with you. I could care less. Like who cares who hits 6 through 9? Do you care? I'm in that. It's to the point where they've tried to piece this thing together for so many years. Now it's right in front of them. Like 1 through 5's never mattered more in the lineup. It's just never mattered more. Like 6 through 9, Kirky's in that mix. If Kirky can give you 65 games next year and catch the big 3 a lot of the times, I'm fine with that. If you need to bring in an older veteran guy who's going to get a little swirly and yell and scream at Yariel, no, I wouldn't mind that one bit. Yeah. Or Bowden or Bloss or whoever else is in the 5 spot and the 4 spot. I'm fine with that. But, man, we talk a lot about Kirky, don't we? Like, there is a lot of conversation around a dude who just really shouldn't be talked about that much. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but, man, do we ever. And I'm in that camp finally that I'm with Jeff. I don't care. I mean, Jim, Jim's a great caller and is very smart.
He's, you know what, he's very good defensively. He gives me what I need defensively. The pitchers like throwing to him.
3 dudes do.
3 dudes really like throwing to him. That's fine.
That's it.
I can, I will take what he gives me offensively, and that's it.
Yeah. I got
it.
yelled at from the other 2 catchers that were on in the other room that did the TV side. The last time I said that I could care less about who's catching. Yeah, I got yelled and screamed at. How dare you say that? It starts with them too. It's like, all right, man.
I don't know where this question is going to go, but let's Stephen Newmarket.
I have a question with respect to the guy that sits behind, or rather beside, the Jays dugout at home games. And even if it's a foul ball, the ball boy will toss him the ball and he writes something down. I get the special balls, the home run, the first hit, etc. But what is this guy with MLB obviously doing, and why does he care about that a ball got fouled off and etc.? So I know that's not on a topic of anything specific, but if you have an answer for that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
It authenticates it as a game ball.
Yeah, but I don't think that's what Steve's talking about. Steve has obviously seen him get multiple balls.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you, Steve. I
don't know.
Never seen that.
I mean, the only reason I don't know.
I mean, a lot of the times whenever the ball's close to that and they want to keep like balls that they use during batting practice.
Maybe
but
that's what
I most of the time the bat boy gets the ball, he hands it to a fan. Like that's basically what they're told is give it to somebody who's paid the ticket to come and watch the Blue Jays play.
Right.
I could do, Steve, if you want me to actually take out time of my day.
Well, the guys down
to ask, I can.
The guys down the baselines just give it to the fans.
Yeah,
half the time.
But I think Steve's obviously seen this more than a couple of times.
There is somebody there. Most of those balls that are authenticated, I think, are just.
Yeah, he sits right behind Hazel, where Hazel sits, on the third base dugout.
And maybe he does they take some game balls to authenticate it. I don't know. Maybe they take some game balls to test them, to check to make sure that that they're prepared the right way. I don't know. We would find out, but he does. I do know that there are those little stickers, and they do authenticate the ball.
Steve, if you'd like me to, I can ask somebody. She will know. Okay. But, yeah. I've never thought of that. I mean, obviously, dude's first hit and first RBI and, 1,000 strikeout. And I think Bassett just had that, right? 1,000 strikeout. Like, those are big deals. You're going to roll the ball over there. Vladdy's going to act like he's chucking it in the stands when he's got another ball in his other hand. But the actual, take a foul ball, the bat boy hand it to whoever Steve's talking about. Yeah, I've never heard that, Steve. I apologize.
I'm puzzled now.
You puzzled enough to ask?
Not a chance. Well, no.
At least
next time I'm
least
down,
I said I would ask.
Next time
because I've never heard of this. Now I'm a little intrigued that the Blue Jays are trying to steal game balls.
Ask. If only we knew somebody who sits near the.
That's what I said. She would know.
We'll ask her. Actually, you know what, Steve? No, we will ask her, and we will get. I'm going to make a note. Ask Hazel about
every ball down the left field line.
Balls. There. I'm making a note. So we'll have an answer for that. We might even be able to. We're not on Monday. We might be able to have an answer for that on Tuesday.
Remind me.
I will.
I got painting to do.
Yeah, you do. You got a big weekend of painting ahead, eh?
I do, yeah. What are you going to be doing?
You don't really need
Not
to
painting?
Know. You don't really need to know.
Cottage, cigars?
No.
Drinky?
No, not. There won't be much of that. I can tell you that much. Jeff Passan is ESPN's MLB insider. He is. We're at that time of year where everybody's taking a look at the free agent class. We'll talk to Jeff about Juan Soto and what Jeff thinks Juan Soto might be able to get. It's a great trivia question. Corey Seager last night hit his 200th career home run, Barker. He becomes the 10th shortstop all time to do that. Now, this is remarkable. He's the only left-handed shortstop to hit 200 home runs.
Wow. That is great.
Yeah, Mark Boffo dug this up. And
wow.
You could probably list the first 5 of the top 10 shortstops in terms of home runs.
Yeah.
Then it gets a little tricky after that. But anyhow, I just found that interesting as well. First left-handed shortstop to 200 home runs. You think shortstop's such a marquee position now. It's almost like a new power position too. So
yeah.
Anyhow, we'll talk to Passan about that. Thad Levine is senior VP and general manager with the Minnesota Twins. The Twins are 2-8 in their last 10 games. They've got the Blue Jays 4-3, and they are in the middle of the best three-way race in baseball right now, as we all predicted. The Twins, the Guardians, and the Royals.
Get crazy.
Going at it.
That West team, that West division is pretty good, too.
Yeah, this is a pretty good race, though. This is a pretty good race.
We didn't expect this race.
No, we certainly didn't.
Yeah.
We did not. Jeff Passan joins us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, well, it didn't take very long.
Nope. Guess who was listening?
Guess who was listening?
Steve, you wanted an answer.
We got an answer for you, Steve in Newmarket. You asked a question about the guy who works for MLB and collects foul balls when they're out of play, and Kevin and I kind of went, humana. Hazel May to the rescue. Regular game balls, as basic as a pitch in the dirt, come out to get authenticated, which I was right about that, and go to the Jays shop for sale as a game-used ball. So that is what when you'll see sometimes, and Kevin is right, the foul ball goes down the line. The ball boy down the line, the ball person, I think they're ball boys in Toronto, will take the ball, and he's got a little hole in the screen, and he'll give the ball to kids when they come down. But the stuff around home plate where Hazel is and everything, the person who is there is a Major League Baseball authenticator. And that is the person, for example, who would authenticate if somebody got their first hit. He would get the ball. He put a sticker on it. He enters a number in a book. So that authenticates it. But yes, those game balls that go there, they get authenticated as a Major League Baseball, as an official used ball, and they go to the Jays shop. And there you go.
Learn something new every day.
We do. The Blue Jays have just made a roster move. This is also from Hazel. Nathan Lucas has been recalled from Buffalo, and Stuart Baroa has been optioned to Buffalo. So,
well, good for Nathan.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been paying his dues. Can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now the rosters do expand, though. So I guess they could still bring another. I don't understand the moves. I mean, yeah, you're right. Good for Nathan Lucas. He's been an organizational soldier. He's been there.
Yep.
How many years has Nathan Lucas been here? It's got to be 3, is it not?
No.
I think longer.
Yeah. Keep talking.
That's got to be maybe just a little longer. Anyhow, so Nathan Lucas.
Good for him.
Be called up. Stuart Burrow. That's good for Stuart Burrow. He got a little major league service time. And he will go back down to Buffalo. I still think at some point we're going to end up seeing Jake Bloss up here. But,
yeah, you would think so.
We'll wait and see how that goes.
No, he's been with the Blue Jays since 2015.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, he's been in the big leagues, just parts of whenever he got called up last year. So, yeah, he's been around long enough and I think they've seen enough that he's predictable. Again, that's why you're asking, or whenever I ask John about being predictable, that's what it is, right? And you sort of want to call up guys who've earned it. I think Nathan's one of those guys. So good for him.
Yeah. What else? No, that was the extent of that. We're going to be joined in a few minutes by Jeff Passan, ESPN's MLB insider. Thad Levine will be along at 5:30. He's senior VP and GM of the Minnesota Twins. The Twins, as we mentioned, will start a 3-game series against the Blue Jays tonight. It'll be Kevin Gossman against Pablo Lopez.
Ooh.
Should be a good pitching matchup. But the Twins, 2-8 in their last 10 games. They've lost 4 straight. It's the same story with the Twins, right? I mean, they always seem to get injuries at inopportune times. But as we mentioned, that race, that 3-way race is going to be I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around the possibility that the Central could send 3 teams to the postseason. Didn't see that.
Well, I think that's the disappointing part about the American League East, right? Is what the Rays and the Blue Jays haven't done, and the Red Sox obviously
I was going to say this:
can't get out of their own way.
If you're the Red Sox, now you're really, this was a big opportunity if you were the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see the Twins up close and personal to see if we think they're better than the Red Sox, right? I think you can sort of lump some of them teams all in the same boat, and it's just whoever stays hot for the longest period of time. And I'm sure the schedule has a little something to do with that too. The Twins are not facing a bunch of teams that are 500 or better. Like, that's going to help them just because what they haven't done against those teams. What are they, 37-48 against teams that are 500 or better? That's not real good. So, and I mentioned the 7 games they got left against Kansas City and the Guardians. So the Twins got it right in front of them. You can sort of, I don't want to say run away with your spot as one of the wild card teams, but you could kill 2 birds with one stone. You can also try to win the Central, and you can also solidify your spot. So this Pablo Lopez dude is something else. You want to know why he's something else? Does a lot of 4-seamers, 41% of the time. You know who don't like 4-seamers, Jeff?
Let me guess.
The Blue Jays. They have the 4th lowest average against 4-seamers at 224. I've been saying this to you till it's blue in the face. Tell me why a team that thinks they have a chance of winning a World Series has so much trouble hitting a fastball. Explain that to me.
Well, it's been the case. It's been the case for a while.
And I have talked to some people around that team that matter, that play every single day, and I've asked the same exact question, and I get the same exact answer. I say, why don't some of these dudes go up and sit heater? And they go, bark. Duh. Probably because they can't hit the heater. And then I start thinking about who's taking them, who ain't swinging at them, who's having trouble hitting them. who's trying to guess breaking ball, and then it makes total sense. Like, I never really thought of it that way.
Jeff Passan is ESPN's MLB insider, joining us now on Blair and Barker. Hello, Mr. Passan. How you doing?
Jeff.
I'm doing great, gentlemen. How are you?
We are doing well. We're doing well. The team is slightly interesting, and, that's always good. And they're in Minnesota, so stuff always happens in Minnesota when the Jays are there.
All into Gosman.
Well,
and the playoffs.
I really should have asked John if he'd called the GM.
He would have hung up.
If he called the GM today and asked him how long he could leave Gosman in the game. I so wanted to do that.
Man.
I so wanted to do that.
Oh, man.
I really did. Well, Schneider opened the door by making the joke about my favorite place. What can go wrong?
Yeah, I don't think he's talking about asking permission.
Maybe not.
No.
Maybe not.
What's wrong with you?
What?
What is wrong with
come
you?
Come on. It's Friday.
Why didn't you say it then?
We can have a little fun. Hey, it's a month since the trade deadline, Mr. Passan, and as we look back at the trade deadline, did it have as much of an impact as? And I understand it varies from team to team, but on balance, do you think it had as much of an impact as we may have thought it did, or it was going to?
No, of course not. It never does. It never works out the way it's going. The way it's supposed to. I mean, I think the day after the deadline, if we all looked at it, it was wow. The Mariners did amazing. They got Randy Arozarena, and they got Jimmy Garcia, and they got Justin Turner, and they filled out their lineup, and they got the back end of their bullpen taken care of, and it has been disaster city for them ever since. And at the same time, it's like the Kansas City Royals, they did okay. No, they've had like the best trade deadline, at least they had until Lucas Erceg tried to barehand a ground ball back to him, got hurt, and then threw the ball away and got Vinny Pasquantino hurt in the process, but that's an entirely different story. I think for a team like the Jays, though, it's been really interesting getting to see Will Wagner and getting to see Joey Loperfido and, knowing that Jake Loss is going to be on his way and is going to be a part of this team. There's an excitement. Even though Yusei Kikuchi's been pitching really well for the Houston Astros, there's still an excitement over, I think, what the Jays did and the fruit that it's bearing.
Jeff, we had a caller call in a little earlier and ask why the organization would want Bo Bichette to play any games of the remainder of the season.
Why do they view it as being so important?
There you go. What did I say? I said the same sort of thing. Well, yeah. And my answer was he's got lots of pride. He wants to play. He wanted to gain some momentum going into the offseason. Well, the other Jeff yelled at me almost and said really had nothing to do with that. He just wants to basically show other teams that he's healthy so he can get traded.
Yep.
My question My question to you is,
I'll say it. Yeah, that's why.
Okay, there you go. That was my question. So it's 100% slam dunk. He's getting traded.
No. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it is a prudent thing to do when a guy like Bo Bichette has eroded his trade value this season, right? To, if you can, potentially showcase that, hey, when he's healthy, he actually is pretty good. Let's remember this happened a few years ago with Zach Wheeler. He was hurt for most of the season and got healthy toward the end and ended up signing with the Philadelphia Phillies. And, that's all, folks. Like, history was made right there, and arguably the best pitcher in Major League Baseball spawned out of that September showing. And look, there's really just about no downside to playing Bo Bichette right now. Number one, he gets out there and does what you said, Kevin. He's a competitive guy. He wants to go out there and play. But beyond that, he can't be a whole lot worse than he was, and he can't erode his trade value a whole lot more than he has already this season. So, yeah, it feels like an upside play for both parties here, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of exactly what I said. I'm not saying that it doesn't guarantee that Bo gets traded, but I think it, and any time a deal's made, obviously there's going to be an exchange of medicals. But if your last your last vision of Bo Bichette as a guy who played the final 14 games of the regular season and hit 300 or whatever, you're probably going to, if you're an interested team, you might be a little more interested than you otherwise would be. And maybe that initial offer is a little more interesting than it would have been. And maybe that initial offer is enough to get discussions going.
Yeah, I just think it's all, Jeff, it's almost like there's such a black cloud around that situation that it has to be done. Like now it's just like, it just doesn't seem like the two parties are on the same page. Like it just seems like it's best for everybody that will happen.
I don't know if I'd go that far at this point. And listen, you live there. You know this place a lot better than I do. You're around the team all the time. You're watching the team every single day. So my perspective is that of someone who's looking at the 29 other teams as well regularly and surveying the shortstop inventory. And, I know Willie Adames is out there to be had in free agency. I know Hassan Kim, probably more of a super utility guy, but still somebody who can play shortstop every day. Beyond them, though, there's not a whole lot out there in terms of shortstops. And so if you want an impact-type shortstop, you could potentially, for 1 year, get a guy who has twice led the American League in hits and who, over the course of his career, has been a steady 300, 340, 475 guy. That's a pretty productive player in this offensive environment, guys. And it's the sort of thing, Kevin, that leads me to wonder, are the Blue Jays, if Bo Bichette comes back and looks like his usual self, going to somehow talk themselves into the idea that, hey, maybe we're just better off for the 2025 season going into it with this guy as our shortstop, and if things fall apart again, we can trade him at the deadline.
Yep. You also took an early look at, I don't know how early it is, I guess, a look at the upcoming free agent class. In some markets, it's earlier.
It's still pretty early.
Well, in some markets, it's earlier than others, if you know what I mean. Or later than others, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it. I'm intrigued by Rōki Sasaki. Obviously, we've read a lot about him. I've seen him pitch. But where do you think he would, what has to happen here for this to become a reality? Explain the whole posting thing to us.
So the way that the posting system works is that the Japanese team needs to essentially say, we're going to put you up, you a player, for auction. And we are going to reap a benefit from that via a posting fee. Now, the posting fee is a percentage of the total contract that's given to the player. And with a guy like Yoshinobu Yamamoto with the Dodgers this year, that percentage wound up being equivalent of about $50 million. So it can be a significant chunk of money. The difference between Yamamoto and Rōki Sasaki is that Yamamoto came over at 25 years old and Rōki Sasaki is only 22. And the way that Major League Baseball's rules are written, if you are an international free agent who is not yet 25 years old, you are subject to international amateur free agent rules, which means that you must be signed within a bonus pool that starts off at like $6 million for your entire class, and you can trade for 75% of that, so you can get upward of $10 million. But Rōki Sasaki, if he came over, would be limited by the amount of money that these teams have in their international bonus pool. It's a lot, Jeff, like Shohei Ohtani. Remember, when he came over, he signed with the Angels for only $2.3 million.
Right.
It was a pittance compared to what he could have gotten, but he really wanted to play here. And the question at this point is, A, does Rōki Sasaki want to? The answer to that is yes. He does not care about the money. He will make it in other ways. But B, more importantly, is his team, is his organization in Japan, the Chiba Lotte Marines, willing to forfeit that massive payday to send him over early? And there is no indication at this point whether that's going to be the case. We probably won't know until mid-November.
Speaking of money, why does Corbin Burns want 8 years?
Well, if you look at the landscape of starting pitching, generally speaking, Guys who are really good get 6 years. Guys who are excellent get 7. And Corbin Burns is in his 20s, has a Cy Young on his resume, has for the vast majority of this season pitched better than anyone in Major League Baseball, and is going to be part of a free agent class where the teams around baseball, like big market, big money, big name teams, need starting pitching. And so I turn this on you. Why wouldn't Corbin Burns want 8 years?
Well, he could want it. That doesn't mean he's going to get it.
That's fair, and that's true. But let's look at last year. Aaron Nola. Would you say that Corbin Burns is a better pitcher than Aaron Nola?
I mean, I've seen Nola do it in the biggest games. That's the difference.
Listen, that's very understandable and that's very fair. He is a postseason veteran at this point.
Yep.
At their best, I will take Corbin Burns over Aaron Nola.
That's fair. That's fair.
Stuff-wise, I will take Corbin Burns over Aaron Nola. And Aaron Nola got 7 years and $172 million. Steven Strasburg has done it in big games, agree. He was older when he signed his 7-year, $245 million deal. I'm not saying that that Corbin Burns is a Garrett Cole comp, right? I don't think he's as good of a free agent as Garrett Cole was when he was going out into the winter. But Garrett Cole got 9 years and $324 million. So if you want to argue that he's better than Nola but not quite as good as Cole, that's where the 8 years comes in. And when you look at the desire for top-end free agent pitching, I mean, guys, how many pitchers in the world would you take over Corbin Burns? I guess that's an honest question that I'm going to ask you. You take Paul Skeens, you take Zach Wheeler, you take Tarek Skubal. Yep, totally. How many other guys? Let's try to name them.
Yeah, there's not many. I mean,
Wheeler, Cole.
Bowden Francis?
Good one.
I don't know. Let me call Taylor Ward. I'll get back to you.
Nice.
No, there's not many. I'm looking at.
And I suppose that's the point.
Right.
The market, Kevin, the market will determine what Corbin Burns gets. But if we look at the history of markets, it says that great pitchers or pitchers with that resume get 7 years. And if there's going to be a differentiator, it's either going to be in dollars or years. And I think that years is a clear way to separate yourself from the pack, just like the Yankees did, going 9 years with Garrett Cole when no one else would.
How fast do you think Juan Soto's free agency is going to be dealt with?
A really good question. I think it will be quicker than. Well, okay. Maybe I'm letting my perceptions get in the way here, because I was going to say quicker than people think. What do you think people think?
I mean, I think most people.
Think?
I think most people think that all Scott Boras has to do is call Steve Cohen and he'll have a deal that night.
I don't know if it's going to be that quick. I think they're gonna let the market marinate a little bit, and I don't know if it's going to stretch out all the way to the winter meetings. I cannot fathom it going past the winter meetings,
right.
But Juan Soto is the kind of guy who wants to get stuff done, and Scott Boras is the kind of guy who has a lot of other clients left on his table. So I could see a deal coming together relatively quickly, but it's not going to be like, November 5th rolls around and by November 6th, Soto's a Met or a Yankee or whoever else it may be. I think it's going to take a little while.
Do you think that the market for Soto, there's two things, right? There's teams that would like to have Juan Soto and may make a call, but teams that have a legitimate shot of signing him. How many teams do you think have a legitimate shot of signing him? Could you see a team like Houston, Seattle, a team like that come out? Or do you think it's going to be Yankees, Mets, and that's it? And we'll
Nationals.
Just wait and see. Nationals is another one.
I don't think it's going to be the Nationals.
No.
I think the Nationals would have made sense when Ted Lerner was the owner. I do not know if they make sense when Mark Lerner is the owner. I can't see Houston, especially with Kyle Tucker.
Right.
I think they look at Kyle Tucker like a homegrown be, 80-90% of the player Soto is, and is probably going to cost 60% of what Soto is going to.
Right.
So I think the value there makes sense to them. Seattle, no. I think it's too far from the Dominican Republic, frankly.
So that
I'm
leaves.
not going to say that it's going to be Yankees versus Mets, but if it wound up being Yankees versus Mets, it would surprise absolutely no one. I mean, what do you guys think about the Jays?
I think, well,
I don't think it makes any sense. I think the Ohtani thing makes sense because they could make a ton of money off the field. I don't think Mr. Rogers is going to drop $600 million for a guy he can't make money off of. That's what I think. And I'm not thinking that if this team is, say, okay, is he going to make it up by by having Soto on the team? I just don't see it.
Yes.
There just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yes. Juan Soto makes this team a playoff team. That I believe.
Well, I was just about to ask you that. Picking that you just answered it. I was going to say, out of the free agents that are available, the Jays need a hitter, and they don't need a barker. They need a hitter, a dude that can carry it for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. What's the name? And I think you just mentioned him. You're in the Soto camp, huh?
Oh, I mean, like he's one of the 3 best hitters in baseball, right?
Yep.
I think
it's him, Judge, and Ohtani.
I think my question would be if understanding that for this ownership group, Shohei Ohtani was a corporate business decision that was just going to happen to manifest itself in the baseball field. Understanding that the money for Shohei, I mean, clearly they didn't take that money and turn around and sign, Bellinger for $300 million, or even give Vladdy $400 million.
Right.
That would make me wonder if they would have if they would spend $500 million on Soto.
Yeah.
That. And the other thing, too, here, we've talked about this a bit, and I don't know, maybe it's not that big a deal because this deal would end up obviously getting done at an ownership level. But, Mark Shapiro's in the last year of his contract. And I mean, I think you need a little clarity there before you start talking bigger picture. Like that's one of the things that really confuses me.
I think that's fair, and I think that's understandable. I also am looking at what the Jays payroll situation looks like over the next few years. They're shedding $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
This is before Vlad's in arbitration, and he's probably going to make $28 million in arbitration, right?
Yep.
So it's more like 70 to 75 million. But you're shedding 70 to 75 million from this year's payroll. Then you go out the year after that, and the only guys under contract are Springer, Gosman, and Barrios. Right?
Yeah.
And then you go out a year after that, and Barrios is the only one.
And Barrios has an opt-out in there, too, I believe. So
I kind of doubt Barrios is going to be opting out, right?
Yeah, no, but I was just saying there is an opt-out.
Just in terms of guarantee.
Yes.
And I'm forgetting Ariel Rodriguez as well. So he's got guaranteed money, but I was going to say it's a pittance.
Yeah.
So the idea that adding for 2025 a large number, well, when you put it in the context of 26 and 27 and 28 and beyond, you have your franchise player guaranteed. You have somebody around whom you can build. And now, hate to say this, guys, but sometimes all it takes is 2. Just look at the New York Yankees this year. Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, the majority of the year, have been their only truly productive hitters. And to get one of them from your division rival and add him to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and have those 2 in the middle of your lineup for the next 8 to 10 years, just saying. It's not my money to spend, but it sounds pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it would certainly excite the fan
boost
base
morale
too.
for sure.
Boost morale,
yeah. Jeff, you said it. No takebacks. You said it. It's happening. We're trusting what you said. No takebacks. Okay.
Hey, I am the person who intentionally did not mention the Blue Jays in the story that I wrote because I didn't want to get hopes up and because I didn't have the information sourced to suggest that they would be in it. So this is all speculation, supposition, and otherwise, Mr. Barker.
You ruined it.
Not attach my name to this sort of thing. Yeah. Do not put this devil hex on me, Barker.
No.
Oh, boy. Your secret's safe with me.
Yeah. Passan until I see the flight manifest. I won't say anything.
See? Man, really? Let it go, Jeff.
Have a great weekend.
You're the best, buddy.
Take care.
See ya.
See you, boys.
Jeff Passan, ESPN's MLB insider.
I
think they're going. I think they'll make a call. I think they'll make a call.
Really, Jeff?
Yes.
What are they going to say when they call?
I think they call on just about everybody.
Okay.
I mean,
are they past calling?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you're one of these people. You will hammer them if they don't make the call.
How do I know if they're calling? You tell me never to trust them. Never listen to what they're saying. They lied to you. You've told me that a bazillion times. So how would I ever know if they call or not? How would I ever know?
I didn't remember.
You did say that.
It's not a lie if they know what the truth is.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that what it was?
I mean, it's action time, Jeff.
It's the fog
the
of
Jays
war.
Drove up the price.
Okay. You're just.
Yeah, and then you drop plain. We need to know, is he on it or not? Tell us the truth.
The Jays and Twins open a 3-game series tonight at Target Field.
Oh, man.
What?
You're something.
Target Field in Minnesota. It should be a good pitching matchup. Kevin Gausman against Pablo Lopez. The Twins are in that 3-team race in the AL Central that Barker wants to pretend doesn't exist. They're 2-8 in their last 10. They've lost 4 in a row. They're the Twins, so they got some guys who are hurt, but they're the Twins, so they'll probably end up winning the division. That's kind of the way it goes.
It's almost like no matter who wins that, any of those 3 teams have a chance to win the World Series.
Yeah,
That's the thing you got to ask yourself.
If Kansas City, Kansas City's bullpen is, I think Minnesota has the best chance of winning a series out of those 3.
Yeah, you said series.
I think.
Unless they face the Yankees. I'm talking about like the NL West makes more sense because all 3 of them teams can win the World Series.
Yeah, but we're talking the AL.
I know that. That's what I said. You asked me earlier, and I said the West instead of the Central. That's it.
Thad Levine is a senior vice president and general manager of the Minnesota Twins. He'll join us next. It's Blair and Barker.
You don't pay attention to me anymore.
I do pay attention to you. That's the problem. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan at Sportsnet. Here's something else. Welcome back to the last half hour of Blair and Barker.
Bring it.
Huh?
Bring it.
We will be off on Monday for the long weekend. We will be back on Tuesday. And the Jays will be home again on Tuesday. Which will be... What? No, it's just, it's kind of odd not to be playing on the long weekend, isn't it?
Maybe.
I don't know. We're not beyond the air. Anyhow, the Jays will open a 3-game series against the Minnesota Twins tonight at Target Field. 8:10 Eastern will be the first pitch. It'll be Pablo Lopez on the mound for the Twins. Kevin Gausman for the Blue Jays. Thad Levine is Senior VP and GM of the Minnesota Twins, and he joins us on Blair and Barker. Thad, thank you so much for doing this. It's great to touch base with you again. It seems like every time we're talking to you, one, the Twins are in first place or second place, or two, somebody in your team is hurt, but you're still in first place or second place. So I know that you guys have had experience dealing with this, but how have you guys been able to kind of keep it together, keep this run together with some of the injuries you guys have had to guys like Buxton and Correa?
Well, first of all, it's great to talk to you guys again, and it's kind of almost comical to hear you enumerate that the overview that way, which is actually exactly accurate. Which is to say that we've been fortunate, similar to Toronto over the last handful of seasons, we've been playoff relevant and been very competitive in what we believe to be a tough division. But concurrently, we have battled some significant injuries over time. And, we have this year has been no different than any year before, in the sense that between Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa and Royce Lewis, who is one of our best players, we I think have had a combined maybe 15 games where all three of those guys were on the field together. And that certainly wasn't our formula for success this year. But one thing that we certainly have learned over the years is the need to build out depth on our team, just because we are aware that some of our best players have had some injury issues in their careers. So rather than when they get hurt, having the season be derailed, we've done the best we can to build out a qualified depth. And that comes in the form of some really, really competent veterans who we've brought in, guys like Carlos Santana and Christian Vasquez and Kyle Farmer and Willie Castro and Manny Margot and those types of guys. And then credit to our farm system, our player development coaches, our scouts, international and domestic, who have really been able to fill the pipeline, so that our goal has always been, like so many managers, Rocco Baldelli espouses the notion of the next man up. But as you guys referenced, when you lose a guy like Carlos Correa or Byron Buxton, we don't per se have the next Carlos Correa or Byron Buxton. But I think what we've been able to do is have some floor raisers, guys who make sure that the wheels don't fall off the bus as we're continuing to move forward. We may be going with slightly smaller tires, so we got to take the turns a little bit easier, but we're still cruising at a nice clip. And that's where the strength of this team has been this year, is the depth. When we've lost those star players, we've been able to still maintain a level of competitiveness that has allowed us to be in the position to strike for the playoffs this season again.
Thad, how hard is it for you being in the job that you're in this part of the year, when basically, I don't want to say it's out of your hands, but, I'm sure you have lots of conversations, but the actual heavy lifting by going out and making trades and call-ups and those kind of things, I'm sure you sort of solidified that, and the team is what it is. How hard is it for you to do your job now, sort of trying to just stay out of the way and enjoy what you've done? And also, do you ever schedule watch? Like, I know what sort of your team has been doing against teams that are 500 or better and who you're about to face. Do you ever sit around and go, okay, if we go, I know we went 2-8, we've lost 4 in a row, but, we are facing Kansas City and the Guardians. We've got 7 more games in the next 25 left. Do you ever sit around and do that?
So I think this time of year you really do. It's really challenging to do that in the first couple months of the season. There's just so much of the schedule left to be had. We have exceptionally intelligent people who support us in our decision making, and they'll tell us on a daily basis what the strength of schedule is for us and all the teams we're competing with. But I believe you got to play the schedule out, and any team is capable of beating another team on a given night. So you have to take every opponent extremely seriously. So I can't say I get too caught up in the strength of schedule. I'm really more in tune with the heartbeat of the team and how the team's doing, and the level of confidence and optimism you feel in the clubhouse. I'm sure you guys can attest to this, but there's times in which you go down to the clubhouse after a loss and you actually are uplifted, because you can tell by the look in the guys' eyes they're dying to get back out there, and they're probably going to win the next game. And similarly, not every win is as inflating as you would think it is. So I think it's having an understanding of that heartbeat of the team. But the fun of the season at this point is that scoreboard watching. I mean, you're watching your game, but we, like so many people, we have a suite that we all sit in, our baseball operations group. We've got like a TV screen that can show 4 games at once, and we've got 3 other playoff impact games that are on the TV, and we're watching those things. So, in between almost every pitch of our game, we're checking to see how teams in the American League Central are doing, teams in the wild card race are doing. And at the core of it, we're fans like everybody else is in that stadium. So we're loving every minute of this. So this is a great time of year. It's exhilarating to be a fan, and we're just blessed to be in the mix of it.
Thad, can you tell us what the secret, let me rephrase that, what the key has been to Simeon Woods Richardson's season? And this is a guy, obviously, that the Jays traded for, and then the Jays traded. And it appears as if he's found his footing in Minnesota.
Yes. I think there's a number of things that have gone into the success of Simeon Woods Richardson's season, and most of it, candidly, stems from him and his work ethic. So I think, keep in mind, you just referenced that as a very young man, he had been traded multiple times. So he had been traded to Toronto, from Toronto to Minnesota. And so I think what we found is, as a very young player, having changed organizations as much as he had, probably had been given a very different message in terms of development from those three organizations. And so it took him a minute, I think, to really settle in and to buy into the plan that we were putting forth to him. We saw massive strides this offseason with him in terms of willingness to make adjustments and change and open-mindedness. Keep in mind, last year when he pitched at AAA, he was one of the youngest players at that level. And so he was always somebody who we were very cognizant of the potential and the upside he would have, because if he was kind of keeping his head above water at such a young age, at AAA, we thought there was a lot of cause for optimism. He made some significant strides in his pitch development over the offseason, and that was a partnership with our player development group. We have some camps that we run specific to pitch development, velocity gain, and in commanded camps. He was good on the command. He was good on the changeup. He was really one who embraced the velocity gains and some of the pitch developments. So I think it was a partnership he had with some of our analytics guys, some of our minor league coaches, and then a tremendous work ethic and aptitude that has landed him as one of the guys who I think is going to, be right there in the mix for the Rookie of the Year conversation in the American League. He'll get some real votes and some real consideration, and I think a little bit unexpectedly so. But for those who were ardent fans in Toronto when he was coming up, he was certainly a premium prospect. We were excited to get him in that trade with Toronto for Jose Barrios, and Austin Martin was part of that deal. He'll be on the field tonight as well. So you'll see a lot of those players featured in that trade will be featured in this series. But credit deserved to Simeon Woods Richardson and to the staff who worked with him.
You mentioned Carlos Santana a little earlier, and I was thinking about him because, he's been a guy who has played a significant role in a lot of, it seems forever, in a lot of the Blue Jays undoing. And, I can remember when you'd get guys like Don Baylor, guys who'd extend their careers going team to team, maybe in a 1-year contract, maybe in a 2-year contract, good clubhouse guys that always seem to have a job and always seem to be able to fit in. And I kind of look at Carlos that way. What explains, first of all, his longevity, but secondly, just the fact that, he does seem to be that guy that, quite frankly, I think he'll probably have a job until he says, I don't want to play anymore.
I think these are the types of players front office people hunt for every offseason. It's the quality makeup veteran who has the ability to impart his experience and wisdom on younger players. I think we have created models which help project performance of players. We have yet to project the model that really nails down the makeup and the quality of a person that you're bringing to the clubhouse. And so I think while we're all hunting this type of player, I think we've had collectively as a group, we always have more misses than hits. And when you find the guy like Carlos Santana, we had Nelson Cruz before him,
right.
These guys who just elevate the room. I think, as you just mentioned, when you see a guy who's 38, 39, 40 years old still performing in the big leagues, obviously you have to be able to contribute from a talent perspective. But more than that, the reason those guys are still around is because they're beloved by every team they play for. And so, you see these types of guys bounce around a little, but I think one thing of note with Carlos Santana is wherever he signed the last couple of years, a playoff caliber team has traded for him at the deadline. Now, obviously, we didn't need to do that this year. He was already on our club. But in previous years, he's been in playoff races down the stretch, if not also in the playoffs, because playoff caliber teams want these types of guys on their club. He's also the rare player who's in his late 30s who also can play every single day, which is, you referenced in the outset that we're a team that has had some injuries. This is one of those guys who you almost have to tranquilize to not play in any night's game because he wants to play every day. So he's setting the tone for our team both on the field, but I think also the wisdom he shares with our players in the clubhouse is what really makes him such a special part of this club.
Yeah, I had to shake my head. He's played 123 games
it's crazy.
This year.
Yeah,
that is insane.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please.
No, I was just looking at your bullpen, and I was thinking about how Duran, is sort of taking a step back, whether it's injury, whatever the case is, and then you look at Griffin Jacks, and you look at sort of that Swiss Army knife, and I wonder if not for him, where your pen would be.
He's been excellent. He's been excellent. Our pen up until about the last 3 weeks was really a competitive advantage for us. We've had a few challenges recently, kind of featured by a few injuries, which have left us a little thinner than we would like to be. But we're hoping to stabilize that pen. So many teams do. Those losses that you rack up seventh inning on are just seemingly pretty devastating. But as you mentioned, the person who's been the most consistent throughout the course of the year, and really the last couple of years for us, has been Griffin Jacks. He's a guy that comes out of the Air Force Academy, brings a little bit of a level of preparedness, commitment, dedication, and competitiveness, which transcends a lot of players. He started as a starter with us, a guy who was a bona fide 4-pitch mix guy. We moved him to the pen. We simplified things, and now he's building back to being a 4-pitch weapon out of the pen. It's a very rare player to be able to have, a guy who we think now has potentially 4 bona fide, four different plus pitches that he's able to attack hitters with. And it's exceptional to watch. It's also a case where I think you're talking about a really intelligent guy who's got tremendous aptitude to learn, and he's constantly evolving and tinkering. So I think each time he sees the same team over and over again, he's a slightly different iteration of himself. And for that, he's always staying just a quarter step ahead of the opposition. And it shows up in tremendous performance. And he's been excellent for us. And as you guys know, the game's kind of evolved. It used to be your absolute best reliever was always pitching the last 3 outs. And I think the way coaches now manage pitching staffs, it's oftentimes your very best pitcher is facing the very best hitters, whether that's the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. And I think you see Griffin Jacks used a lot in that way by Rocco Baldelli.
Mm-hmm. Thad, really good of you to join us today. Thanks so much, as always. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, good luck.
My
be
pleasure,
well.
guys.
Take care. It's Thad Levine. He's Senior VP and GM of the Minnesota Twins. Yeah, Carlos Santana. People who are interested, why we asked about Carlos Santana. In his last 30 games against the Blue Jays, this probably doesn't surprise you. He's 38 years old. His last 30 games against the Blue Jays, he's hitting .300 with 10 doubles, 8 home runs, 21 RBI, 14 walks, 18 runs scored, and .999 OPS. I mean, we always talk about Jays killers, and it's Mountcastle, and it's Aaron Judge, and it's true. But Carlos Santana, man, always seems to be in the middle of something happening.
Yeah, the Jays had an opportunity to get him too, I think, right? If they wanted him, they're a veteran guy both sides of the plate.
123 games.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's, the DH spot, they wanted to work a bunch of people around, didn't really have a position for him. Deuces sometimes can hit, Jeff, no matter what your age is.
Yeah. No,
I'll ask you this. Name a Twin other than I would think Correa that you'd want up the biggest at bat of the year other than him. That's what you got to ask yourself, right? That's what you try and do on good teams.
Well, healthy, I like Royce Lewis.
There you go.
Healthy,
yeah, that's
like
fair.
Royce
That's
Lewis.
fair too, right? Yeah, absolutely. He's just not healthy enough. But yeah, I'm with you, right? But they have multiple options. That's why they're a really good team. But I'm saying he's one of them. Like he's a legit. Like you're okay if it's 2 outs, bases loaded, and you're down a run. And like you're okay with him being up. It's pretty cool to say.
Because you used to see guys like that all the time who would. Who contending teams are always like Don Baylor. Contending teams are always trading for Don Baylor. You used to laugh because you get around the trade deadline, and you'd start saying, "Okay, who's Don Baylor going to be with this year?" Because he was going to come in. He's a good clubhouse guy. He's a great hitter, and he just
going to help your team win a game.
Help your team win a game.
Yep.
And there's no moment too big for him.
No.
Having said that, though, I mean they need to get healthy for them.
It's going to be tough if they don't. Pablo Lopez is pretty good. The back end of the bullpen, I think, is an issue. Durant's sort of taking a step back, whatever the case
Simeon
is
Woods
there.
Richardson's numbers are.
Yeah, he's been pretty good, right? I mean, you got to buy in. I think it's easier to sell it to a kid who's trying to find his way and be an established big leaguer. Yep. And he's got stuff, and he's a freak athlete, which is a big deal, right? Repeating delivery and being able to take the advice of the khakis and being able to actually go out and apply it is, not always the easiest thing if you don't have the talent. So, yeah, I mean, they're a good team. Are they a good enough team to make a run at it? That's the thing you got to ask yourself. And I think that's why a lot of people, that little race in the Central, they shrug their shoulders, they roll their eyes, and they go, really? Like, are they? It's like, and I think that's sort of where everybody's at until they actually prove us wrong.
Yeah.
That's all. They're good teams, and they're fun to watch.
the whole thing with Minnesota.
Push comes to shove.
There's always that Yankees thing, right? Any
three of them become the Diamondbacks of last year. That's what you got to ask yourself, and I don't think that's the case. Like the
Pasquantino injury is going to hurt Kansas City. 6 to 8 weeks.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
That could cost them first place.
Exactly. Cleveland, the Guardians they've been there all year. I can kind of see plus the Guardians have
best bullpen in baseball.
Exactly.
Ramirez needs to start hitting again.
But
Naylor.
Yeah,
offensively, right? It's like some
Kevin,
of the Blue Jays last couple of years.
You wouldn't bet against Ramirez going on a roll, though, would you?
Yeah, I would. But again, it's not about making the playoffs, right? I think because of the division they're in and some of the other teams that are struggling that we thought were going to be better has opened the window.
It's like any.
I just think even like it again going on the road. Even three of them teams go on the road and beat good teams. Beat the Astros, beat the Yankees.
The only reation
the Orioles.
The only reason I would say the Guardians is because of the bullpen and the guy.
Maybe it's a high school game with them. Just they got to hit homers. Can they hit homers against good teams?
Having said all
in
that,
the playoffs,
having said all that, man, it just watching the Astros the past couple of weeks. I think the Astros may be going back to the World Series. Man.
I think maybe a lot of that would have to do. Are they going to get Tucker back? Tucker would help. Excuse me. He'd have a little something to prove in the playoffs. Hasn't been good. Maybe get him healthy. Verlander, what's he bringing? Like Verlander, the presence would make it easier for the hunters of the world to just sort of go out and fill in the blanks. Yeah. I think they got the pedigree. They got experience, which you can't teach. And it is almost just get in. And now they're winning their division, which means they might play a lesser team, which would be easier for them to go on to a further round, which would help them maneuver around their rotation. Well, there's a window if you played it right to get it done. I just think the X factor would be this Verlander and Tucker. I think that if they get those two dudes right.
Even 80%, 85% right. It's.
I mean, you look at Alvarez, which we rarely talk about him because of what time he plays, and most people hate the Astros. I mean, do you just see offensive left-handed hitters that do things he does? It's just like you're in awe of what he does, and you rarely lump him in with the Sotos of the world, which is just a shame.
But that's right. A lot of that has to do with
it. People ain't going to ever give him credit,
and it's odd because it's like. He's part of the postseason furniture. Guys like that generally do get.
Speaking about a guy you want up when it matters the most. Man.
That's it for us. Enjoy the baseball this weekend. Have a great long weekend, and we will talk on Tuesday.